homework problem that was assigned was, as we've called it, the Titanic problem. Excuse me, in your Quit and Quit book, it's on the bottom of page 445, and it's problem 19.14. And the scenario is that I think these are real numbers. Is that the two variables are involved. They're both, again, keep in mind that a chi-square analysis is for categorical variables, and our two variables are both indeed categorical or nominal. And the two variables are where you were housed. Were you housed in the cabin area or the steerage area? And again, I didn't know that steerage area, what that meant, until somebody who'd been on a cruise told me the first time I did this example. So the steerage area is kind of inside down below from what I'm told, so I believe you. The other variable is whether they survived, yes or no. Pretty important variable. So the two variables are categorical. Now, there are a lot of ways we can say they're categorical, they're nominal data. What do you call it when you've got a variable that's either one or the other, either this or that? There are two options, one category or one other category. Starts with a D. If you're flipping in your book, it's way, way, way back there. It's a dichotomous variable. You got a dichotomy means it's one thing or the other thing. So these are dichotomous variables. And again, they're not even ordinal because it's not. Well, I guess you could argue it is better to survive than not survive, and we're going to see if it's better to be in cabin or steerage. But as far as we're talking about just a yes and a no for survival, a cabin or steerage for different types of lodging. So we know that we know how many people were housed in each type of lodging, and we know how many people survived and how many people didn't survive and where they were lodged. So if you look at the way the data is presented on page 445, it gives you that 2x2 chart. It also gives you the totals out to the right for the survivors and non-survivors. It gives you the totals to the bottom for the cabin folks and the steerage folks. It gives you the grand total of 1,291. And we can crank this out by hand, but by now you know I'm the lazy person I am. I don't want to. So we're smart enough to figure it out otherwise. So we're going to make SPSS do this. So the first thing we do is we're going to go to variable view. And I'm going to name variables, first of all, according to the two variables that we had. One is accommodations, or accommodation, and the other is whether or not they survived. And for accommodate, I'm going to label those. So I'm going to go to values to label them. So I'm going to let, for accommodation, I'm going to let 1 be the cabin area. And you can, it doesn't matter which is which, just label it the way you want to. Just remember to put the right numbers in. So 1 is equal to cabin, and again, that comes from, see how I've got the values highlighted. The value highlights, that pops up this box. So a value of 1 means cabin. We're going to add that. A value of 2 is going to mean steerage. R-A-G-E. So 2 is equal to steerage. We're going to add that. So I'm okay with that. And it'll tell me as much room as it has. If that's not enough room, by the way, you can move these columns over so you can make them different sizes if you want to. Under this, whether they survived or not, we're going to let a value of 1 represent yes, the person survived, add that, and a value of 2 represent no, person, the number who did not survive. We add that. So there are 2 variables. I need one more name, something that's going to become a column heading. And I've accounted for the variables, but I've not accounted for the numbers, hint, 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 the numbers in the body of the table. So I'm going to call that number, because I'm going to enter a number in there. And I'm not going to do anything else with that other than just accept the default values on that. So when I click back to data view, those 3 things are going to become column headings, and click, there they are. So, if I've got let's say I've got a cabin accommodation, and the number of people who did survive. So how many people were accommodated in the cabin and did survive? 299. The 299 is my number. How many people were accommodated in the cabin area but did not survive? We code that a 2. So the non-survivors in the cabin area were 280. And what about the steerage area? We had people who were housed in steering, and they did survive. And that number is 186. And finally, we have people who were accommodated in steerage, and they did not survive. That's a 2. And the number who did not survive from steerage were 526. Now, you can probably, the numbers are so one-sided, you can probably eyeball this and kind of figure out what you're going to get. And you're right. You'll get what you expect if you see that big number of 526. But a lot of times the numbers aren't that obvious. And sometimes when they are obvious, you're wrong. So we're going to run the data. So we're going to go to, first of all, data. And we're going to weight the cases. And you remember what we weight by? First of all, click, we're going to weight by the number. And we've always used number for the number, so we've always weighted by the number. So I'm going to weight by number. Going to click OK. Now I get an output box that just kind of gets in the way because it tells me I did something, but I already know that. So, we're ready to analyze. Where do we go to analyze? And keep in mind, this scenario, this particular analysis, it brought us full circle back to where we really started talking with the very lowest kind of data. And the first thing we did, we talked about statistics-wise, was descriptive statistics. So we're going to go to descriptives, and if you'll remember, crosstabs, because this two-way ANOVA, as it's sometimes referred to in the book, it's also referred to as crosstabs. Crosstabs because you get, in this case, a 2x2 table. So we're going to go by crosstabs. And I'm just going to, again, it doesn't matter what the rows are, what the columns are, but I'm going to stick with the way the data is presented to us in the book. The rows are whether or not they survived, and the columns are what the accommodation is. If you get it mixed up, it doesn't matter because you've got it labeled right anyway. If we go to statistics, we want the chi-square, and we want the phi and Kramer's V. I'm not sure if anybody, I encouraged you in your last APA write-up, if you were to try to tackle, and this is a good one to write up as a chi-square, but that was kind of an option. I promised you I'd give you a little leniency in terms of being picky because of sort of difficulty degrees. But this would be a good one to write up. And one of the things that we report is the phi and Kramer's V. And I don't think we want anything else on that, so we're okay to continue. We don't really want any, well, under sales, yeah, we do want to, we're going to ask to calculate the expected value. Not that that matters in our analysis. And we've talked about how to calculate expected values by hand, so it's just going to give us those numbers because it's going to be, it's kind of interesting to see if you're above or below what you expect and how much. And do we want anything else here? You can ask for percentages if you want to, but again, that doesn't matter for the analysis, so I think I'm okay there. I don't think I want anything in format. So I would say we are ready to click OK. So I get an output window that looks kind of messy. Actually, I lied. It doesn't look kind of messy. It looks real messy. So the magic thing I want to look at first of all is the chi-square line. Oh, notice this says Pearson chi-square. That's the same Pearson as our old friend Pearson, the correlation. And sometimes I also mention it's even referred to as chi-square analysis of variance. So we could even call this a chi-square analysis of variance. Our chi-square value is 88 something, 1 degree of freedom, because if you calculate one expected value, you don't have to calculate anymore. My p-value is significant. It's less than 0.05. So The bottom line is that P is less than 0.0001 in this case. Now, so we have a significant difference somewhere. And the somewhere here, we don't really have to look for because we've only got one place to look. Our only variable, our only difference in whether you survived or not was where you were housed. So what happens is that since this is significant, you've only got two categories or two groups. You're housed either here or there, so you have only two groups. Then if it's a significant difference like it is here, the significance is going to be between the only two groups that you have. Kind of like if you were doing an ANOVA between just two groups, males and females. Well, if you get significance, it's going to be between males and females. You don't have to do the follow. If you got two groups, you don't have to do the follow-up. So, bottom line here is that yes, if you were housed in the cabin area, you had a significantly greater chance of surviving than if you were housed in the steerage area. And one of you wise persons put a comment on your homework I already noticed today that mentioned if you're booking a cruise with Carnival, you might want to keep this in mind too. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty wise suggestion. Any questions about the homework? Well, pretty straightforward. Chi-square, again, chi-square brings us full circle to the lowest kind of data. It's not... the analysis has a little bit of different flavor here because you have to kind of work the data in the kind of format that SPSS will understand. But if we're looking at the right part of this messy output window, if we know what part to look at, it's important what parts not to look at, not to worry about, then it's pretty straightforward. There's a significant difference in this case. So thus endeth the epistle of the Titanic. B and C, the other parts asked for if you look at the, and I've not stressed that in the example, but B and C ask if you look at the write-up, you'll see something. And some of you wrote this up, and I'm not looking at the right number now, but you have X times of chance of a better chance of surviving in cabin than the steerage area. Yes. And all I want to write down is there a significant difference? And the answer is yes. No, I didn't ask you. Some of you picked up on that, but I didn't. My main thing was just, yeah, there's a significant difference in the different housing areas and survival rates. And anyway, any other questions or thoughts or comments? Okay.